Okay, Jackie, before we get into your session, I'm going to go over a couple of things just so I can answer any questions beforehand. So before we connected, I pulled you some oracle cards. We're not going to go over them in the session, but I am going to send you pictures and guidebook descriptions because that'll be a deeper level of messaging. And then I also asked each one of your chakras what kind of crystals would help with healing and with growth. And so I built you a crystal grid, and I'll send you pictures of that as well. And then if you have any questions, you can just let me know. And then the replay I should have to you either later this evening or tomorrow. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so I'm going to read some of the notes that you left me, so I make sure I get everything. So I have guidance on your path, onwards and upwards, which love that. Your path, soul mission, and any obstacles that might be in your way. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So let me ask you before we get into all of that, where you're at on your energy healing journey. Are you a practitioner already?
No. It's interesting. I don't know where to explain it. So, or where to start. I'm towards I'm past all the trauma and allowing that to follow me and guide me and distract me.
Okay.
To keep it short, the universe literally picked me up from the situation that I was in and plopped me physically in the middle of nowhere, like completely isolated. So I
Mhm.
came away from all of that. And I went through something like the worse than a dark night of the soul. Like I almost completely lost myself. Well, I did completely lose myself. And I spent like the last year and a half healing from that and finding myself again. And so now I'm in a place where I do have like I have some Reiki certifications, stuff like that. I'm just not, so I practice different things. I'm just not like just for myself at this time. Although I would like to be I guess some sort of a practitioner, healer publicly for other people at some point.
Okay. When I have a page full of notes that your higher self is going to go over here with you, and when I'm reading your energy field, I'm like, oh, this is somebody who has done a lot of work to clear
Yeah.
out trauma and PTSD and things that have happened in this incarnation, because everything that you had come forward were things that were a lot deeper in your Akashic fields and
Yeah.
things that you can only access if you have done a lot of work. And so if you needed confirmation of like, oh yeah, okay, because sometimes there's no gauge, right? It's like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
So yes. And so for me looking at your energy field, it's like, oh, we went on like a very deep journey with it. Okay.
I
Have
feel
you
almost completely separated from what I went through, like almost like a different person in a way.
oh, yeah, you have completely like shifted identities. Like we have released a lot of those energetic words, which that's great, right?
I'm
But
not sure how to fully grasp that yet sometimes. Because, if you think about a past memory, sometimes where you're like, if it's whether it's traumatic or not, you totally identify, like, yes, I made those choices. I did those things. I was a part of that. Some of those things now I remember. I know that was me. I know I was there, but it feels like completely different from myself, like separated.
that's a different timeline. Those are different timelines. You've done so much work that, like, yes, those happened, but the timelines that you were on back over here are so vastly different in frequency, the one that you're on now, that yes, you were still a part of it, but it's like that's not us. Like
Okay.
there's so many layers of you in between those old timelines that you're not, that like sometimes you can't identify with those anymore. Okay. And I get it. Do you feel like in your life that you've lived like these different chapters, and
Yes.
they're like their own lifetime realities, and they're very
Yes.
separate from you, and the one you're in,
Absolutely.
you're like, yeah, that was me, but not me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
Okay.
I feel like my entire life has been that way. I signed myself up for a crash course. From a child, I was I was born with claircognizance, I would say activated. I've always been highly claircognizant, and I was born with a knowing of esoteric knowledge, not knowing it was esoteric knowledge. So as I went on my path and I learned more about like symbology and stuff like that. When I was older, I went, oh my God, I was doodling that in my notebook in like the first and second grade, all these different symbols and things. And when I was in like the third grade, I just outright, because I was pulling from my claircognizance. I was like channeling from a small child. I would just like say things. And I told them I could do a full moon like seance or something. And I did something weird and it like spooked everybody out. But like I've always had some sort of otherworldly connection to who who I am, who I've been. And it's always been there with me. And that's my anchor point through all the trauma, is the things that I've been through, other people would have gotten lost, or like it would have been catastrophic for them, where I had this tether to myself, I guess, so I couldn't fully get lost. I'd get lost in it, but not completely, because I always could come back to who I am, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like sometimes the 3D thing that we sign up for is very heavy and intense, but if you have this like very deep connection to that multidimensional facets of self, that's what keeps you going. That's what keeps you pushing through, because you know what you're capable of and you know
Yeah.
like who you actually are. So it's like, I just need to get through this. Like as long as I can just get through this, like I'll be fine and I can see myself on the other side of it. So you were probably, when I look back through my journey, I realized that I knew how to timeline perceive as a tiny child, and I could actually speak and converse with these like much higher self versions and future versions of myself that kept on talking back to me and saying like, hey, this is just one of those chapters, just keep going and we're going to keep getting to who you are in the future. Okay. And then one day I woke up and I was like, oh, I'm that person now. So I think that's where you're at in this journey too, of like, okay, I'm here, I'm solid now, like I'm on the timeline that I'm supposed to be on.
Yeah.
Yes.
I had an experience once as a child. There my father did something that, I had a lot of trauma from the very small age, and my father did something that was very upsetting to me and dysregulating to me. So I went in my room. It was my first I know this is recorded, so I want to be careful what I say, but it was my first unaliving ideation at like
Mm-hmm.
9 years old. So I went in my room. I was really upset. I was kicking my feet on the wall. No one came in there. No one cared. And I was screaming out loud and crying, like, why am I here? Why? I just kept saying, why? Because I didn't understand why I was getting treated that way. Why these things are always happening to me. Another, and this could be sort of like what the reason why I bring it up. I don't know if it was my higher self. I really haven't been able to figure out who this was. I clairaudiently heard another voice in the room that told me I was meant for greater things or higher things. I don't remember exactly what they said. And it was like this calming energy that came over me. And I stopped focusing on, you know, what I was upset about. And I went in that direction. I was completely calm. I went from like freaking out to completely something else. And then I don't remember what happened after that. I don't know if they left or if we had a conversation. I don't know.
So funny you said that, because it took me back to when I was about 12 or 13 years old and I was also having a lot of those thoughts. And there was just this version of me or a different facet that was like, hey, I just need you to hold on through these chapters. I just need you to keep going, because what you're going to be helping with is really important.
And I knew, like, I wasn't scared. I just knew, I don't know. It was otherworldly. I have no idea how to explain it.
Do you ever are you doing like internal astral projection to different places?
I think I do. I'm now starting to recognize, as I'm doing it, I'm actually there traversing, because I've always done it like it's been a natural thing. I didn't realize, I just thought everybody did that when they're thinking about things. I'm pretty sure I traverse like other timelines, including past timelines, when I think about them, because I go into it and like I'm interacting with it. It's interesting. And I've always astral projected while I was sleeping, especially when I was a child, a lot, like a lot.
Yeah, you're interacting with the timelines in real time. It's
Okay.
not just a memory, it's like a real time that you're this is where you can't, well, you don't really need this as much anymore because you're kind of already past these chapters, but where you can go in and modify timelines to help you in the present. Like
I've done
that's
that.
Yeah, yeah, where you're going in like helping your inner children and things like that. So yeah, you've advanced very quickly.
Yeah. And a lot of these things I had as a child, so I didn't even realize what I was doing. I don't, and as I get older and I learn more things, I'm like, oh, I've already been doing that this entire time. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So what are you doing in life right now? Like what is the 3D situation look like?
So I lived in New Jersey and I was in a domestically violent 13-year long relationship that I was horrified of leaving because of his threats, whatever.
Hmm.
It's the classic empath and narcissist
Yep.
thing, but he was a bit I would say escalated from anyway, I won't get into that. So I literally, because I couldn't get away from him, he had no boundaries. He was always, even though he left me and the kids, was always coming to my house and causing chaos and destruction. The universe literally lifted me out of that and brought me to Florida, and I hate it here. So,
Okay.
but this whole thing has been a learning experience for me because when I got here, we live so isolated where we are, and Florida is even worse than New Jersey as far as like everything being far
Hmm.
away. Where I live specifically is really, really desolate and isolated. And I don't have any friends. I really never have. And I don't have any supporting parents or family. My parents are here, but they're not,
Hmm.
capable of, I don't know, being a parent. And obviously my ex, I left him behind and I crashed. I had such a difficult time. Um, I needed that separation so I could process it. I was processing pretty much my entire life of trauma,
Hmm.
because my parents wouldn't get me the help when I asked for it. And then I went on my own traumatic timeline, and I needed to process all of that, but I crashed. I completely lost my identity. I was this close to getting DID. I'm pretty sure I had like oh, what is that identity? I can't remember what it's called.
Like you're talking about
Borderline,
okay, okay, got it. Okay.
because I didn't have a sense of self anymore.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
you were going through depersonalization, but it's not actually depersonalization. It's sometimes when we go through our acceleration on our ascension journey like too quickly sometimes
yeah,
it really makes you start to lose the tethers to
yeah,
like the human reality, right? And then
yeah,
all
I
of a
wasn't
sudden,
here anymore.
yeah. Right? And so that's why we always have to make sure we're telling people like, hey, this doesn't need to be something we're doing like overnight. Because once you learn that time is not real and
Yeah,
like all of this stuff, you're like, okay, what's
yeah.
happening?
Time
Yeah.
was like flying by. I would
Yeah.
sit in my bed and I'd zone out, and all of a sudden it was 8 hours later. It was nighttime. Like I sat down when it was morning, and now it's nighttime, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is what's happening. And I did
Hmm.
that for like a year or so. And sometimes I would go to work and I'd come back and then I'd do that. So I could turn it on and like force it through what I needed to like take care of the kids, go to work, and then on my own time
Yeah,
I'll
but
start.
you were out here. You were
Yeah.
out here. You're not actually in yourself.
Yeah,
Right.
I was just,
Yeah, yeah,
and then it got worse. Like I dissociated for a while. And I'd be like floating up here. I'm watching myself do things,
yeah.
but I'm floating up here. I've gotten a lot better. I was still doing that, dissociating like the beginning of this year.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
but I'm a lot better now. I'd say I'm pretty much fully in my body for
Are
the
you
most
back
part.
in? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so I
Well, let's talk about that for just a second so I can make sure that if there's anything that your higher self wants me to relay for that. Okay. So because that's, that's not a good feeling, especially when you have a lot of 3D responsibilities. Okay.
yeah.
So is there anything in I don't know when the last time that happened was, but is there anything that kind of like triggers that?
It's funny you ask that. I s- it's always other people. It's always other people,
Mm-hmm.
or things that remind me of whatever that might have been. It'll trigger like old stuck things in me. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the last, like when I made this appointment a couple weeks ago, I was going through something with my ex because he's been clean. He was clean, and he was trying to be supportive financially for the kids, and we had a talking, working sort of relationship. It was rocky, but it was all right. Um, he did something that I don't think it wouldn't be good for me to say on camera.
That's okay. Okay.
completely, I mean, I can if you want, but I don't know if you want to keep it in there. He sent me a video. Should I say it or not?
You don't
Man,
have to if you don't, if you want to relay that to me, that's absolutely fine. If
I
not, that's
can. I
okay
just
too.
don't know if it's like appropriate to post, but he sent me a video of him with another woman, let's
Mm-hmm.
say, up close and personal. And I was half asleep when I woke up. I knew he had relapsed again.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something he's done to me before. He was also physically violent with me. But what it did when he sent that to me, because everything was good, everything was fine. And then all of a sudden he does that. I didn't need to see that. I don't care if you're with other women, but he's done it before. And so what it did was it shot me right back to the last
Right.
time he had done that to me. And I was dysregulated for like a week or so. And I try to not let those things affect me as hard as they do when things come up. And I don't know how I don't know how to work around it. I don't know how to stop it from happening. I don't know how to I think that's my issue because it's not just with him. Like sometimes my father will do something messed up. Sometimes my oldest will re-trigger me. And it's like I don't know how to ground myself in those situations so I'm not like falling back into old memories or something like that. Or maybe I'm supposed
Yes.
to revisit them, but I don't like it.
Okay. So what I see happening when those things are occurring is okay. Let me see how your higher self wants me to word this. You have spliced so many different timelines in between those identities and the one that you are now. How long ago was it that you split from that ex?
Um he left me in 2016, 2017,
Okay.
but
Okay.
I couldn't let him go. So um we were constantly like reconnecting,
Yeah,
rekindling,
yeah,
or I
yeah.
let him back in. Like I didn't fully let him go until recently when I started really digging up all this stuff and healing parts of myself.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you have through your accelerated awakening. Okay, because it's almost like you have done this out of like a survival mechanism is to like force yourself into propulsion and to be
Yeah.
where you are right now, right? But with that comes a whole wide variety of effects sometimes. Okay, so you have spliced yourself through time in so many different identities in so quickly, right? What's happening when you get triggered like that is your physical human body is still holding on to a lot of things in your central nervous system. And out of a safety trauma response, you are splitting from your multidimensional self. Okay, and here's your human over here, and your human is jumping back in those old identities that are so far back in those timelines back over here. So it's creating this really wide consciousness gap. And your multidimensional self is like, hey, come back over here. And it's like talking through a tin can and she can't
Yeah.
hear it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So when and this is going to take time and practice, obviously, you know, you've been working on it, right? But
Yeah.
when these things are happening, because I've had this happen before. And it's like it's like you can't stop it. And you can actually see yourself. Like you're like
Yeah.
seeing yourself do it, right? We
Sometimes I'm like, hey, hello,
yeah.
can we like get it together? And I can't.
Mhm.
Like I have to feel those things to be able to release them. I think I mean it's got its own purposes, but
It does, but it doesn't need to be on the level of which you've been experiencing it though, because like you've worked through so much that it doesn't need to be as intense as it has been. So what I would say when those things happen, your multidimensional self is trying to get a hold of you, right? But the consciousness gap is too far. Sometimes if you talk to your inner children and your teens instead, because that's actually where that trauma came from in the first place and why you pulled that X in,
yeah.
you as the higher self right now are closer in consciousness to your inner children and teens. And it's going to be a lot easier for you to be the multidimensional version in this moment and protect and guard them because y'all are much closer in density with one another. And when you think about these inner children and teens that were hurt very deeply because of this, and this is why we got into these behavioral patterns, it's a lot easier to stay within this current reality and grounded within self if you were having to watch these inner children.
Yeah.
If you're saying like, hey, why are you freaking out? Instead of your multidimensional self doing that to you, you need to do that to them and say like, what's going on? Why
Yeah.
do we not feel safe? What can I do to help you right now? Tell me what's going on. Let's feel this together. It's not mine because it's not yours right now. That's their stuff. Yes, you still have those effects from the ex. You've already severed the energy cords. It's actually stuff coming from the past that needs to be
I feel that.
absolved,
Yeah.
right? So if we
Yeah.
can grab a hold of reality and where we're at and talk to them, that's going to keep you in your body. That's how I actually stopped doing what the thing that you're going through right now, because
Yeah.
I couldn't hear her either. I would say, okay, what's going on with y'all? Let me
Okay.
help you. It's going to keep you present in your body because now you got kids you have to take care of. You know, like with your kids, where like if you're kind of in that depersonalization land up here and then something happens with them and you snap back in
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
you have to be present. Same thing
Yeah.
with your inner children.
Okay.
If you know, just like think of them like your actual kids, like
Yeah.
they are having a panic attack inside of you. You need to get snapped back in so that you can help them.
Okay.
The
That
same
makes so
thing
much
as you would
sense.
do with the kids outside of you, because your inner children and your teens are like dense. Your multidimensional form is high frequency, and if you're trying to connect with her in that moment, it's going to send you further out.
Yeah. I used to, the thought of inner children work or inner child work used to freak me out, and I would push the thought away. It made me so uncomfortable. And then I realized one day I was doing to my inner child what everyone else
Yeah,
had done to me
regurgitating
my
the
entire
trauma.
life.
Yeah,
I was ignoring her. I was pushing her away, chastising her, pretending like she didn't exist, or like shaming her or whatever. And then I broke for a little while. Like I was crying, I was upset that I was
yeah,
gaslighting myself, all that stuff. Everything came
yeah.
flooding through once I realized that. And I was watching one of your videos the other day, and it's funny that you just said all of that to me, because I came to this realization um that I can hold space for myself in those moments, almost like parenting myself,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
like being that solid person for myself that I always wished I had from someone else. I can also do that for myself, and that actually helped me a lot come back to myself where I am now. Because like I was not okay the
Mhm.
last 2 weeks. I couldn't listen to certain music. I couldn't hear certain words because it would just snap me back to that dysregulated feeling of like what he did to me in that moment, seeing everything, whatever.
Yeah. So this is where we need to, when those things are happening, say over yourself, I have to be present for them right now.
Yeah.
I have to be present for them. They need me right now. Okay. And if something happens and you completely, I don't even like to call it depersonalized because there's a lot of like stigma around that with like psychology. It's not exactly the
Yeah.
same as like psychology depersonalization. But if you snap back into those old states of being, we don't want to feel guilty about that.
Right.
Right. Because it just is what it is. But when we can grab a hold of it and say, I have to be present for them right now, it creates separateness from the trauma. And then we need to figure out where the root of it came from. If I am upset about my ex, that's the top layer.
Yeah.
That's coming from somewhere much deeper. So if we can, in that split second, say that of like, this is coming from somewhere deeper, then we know it's not us in the current. And then we start to detach from it and then start to put it on the inner children and start to say, let me help you with that instead, because I'm already cleared through this, right?
Yeah.
Then it's not currently happening.
Okay.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Any questions about that?
No.
Because I know that's scary when that happens. And it's like you're sitting there watching yourself do it and you're just like, girl,
Yeah, and there's
like, what's
feel
happening?
so helpless. I'm better about it now than I used to be, because I used to it's funny, again, funny you brought that up. It's not funny, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I used to shame myself through it, where I would just be really upset and make it worse because I couldn't
Hmm.
stop it from happening, and I didn't know how to make it better, and I have no friends, I have nobody in my life to talk to. It's literally just me. So sometimes having moved here, it made me feel like that's what made it worse too, is I would feel insane. I didn't have anyone to talk to about anything, not a therapist, and I was talking to myself in my head. And so there's just certain aspects still about my life and where I live, which I'm working on. I'm at a place now to partially answer your question you asked me earlier. Um, on I've been making a lot of shifts lately, but also on trying to change what I'm doing for a living, or like at least make
Mm-hmm.
it better. Trying to get out of here and like move somewhere else, but be able to support myself in all facets, emotionally, monetarily, because I am it, and I know that's part of my lesson, my life. I came here knowing that I've been isolated this way my entire life. I've been very, it's just me. If somebody came in, they'd be out shortly after, and I noticed that as a small child, that was a pattern. And I used to feel like it was a curse and it was a huge burden to me, but I feel I understand more now. It's some sort of a lesson about um supporting myself and loving myself, even if there's no one else there to reflect that back to me, at being like my own source of understanding.
Yes, I have been there myself. Okay, but I want you to know that it is not going to be like that forever, because you're hitting this point where you're finding your true self and opening up to that. And then there's going to be this clink over where it's
Okay.
like, oh, here are all my people. Here's what I'm
Yeah.
supposed to be doing. Like everything's like clinking in, right? But part of the reason that you have been kind of like separated is there's multitudes of layers. I mean,
Yeah.
you see
I know some of it. Yeah.
you see the layers and all that stuff,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
just want you to know that it's not going to be like that forever. And also don't get in the trap of, well, this is how it's always been, this is how it always will be,
Yeah.
because not that you don't necessarily have walls and guards up, because you're very hyper aware of what this is
Yeah.
karmically, right?
Absolutely.
But even then you got to catch your like human sometimes of
Yeah.
like,
I do.
hey, like what we're not going to do is isolate and hermit forever,
Yeah. I've been
because
working
there
on
are
that too.
people out there who will understand us, who will love us unconditionally, who will hype us up, who are magical, wonderful beings of light. Again, when you were a child and then your higher selves are kind of talking to you saying like, hey, these are just the chapters that we're going through right now. Once we get on the other side, you got to do that too with your
Okay.
inner children, your teens, and your current self, and being like, this is just for right now,
Yeah.
but we are headed towards a completely different reality. I know you feel that too. Like this,
Yeah. I
it's not
do.
going to be like this forever, but you got to keep on being open and reminding yourself of that, and putting yourself out there too,
Yeah.
like finding communities online, finding mentors to watch online, finding metaphysical stores. Like we gotta be
Yeah.
putting ourselves out there where we can. Also, which I don't know where you live, but it sounds very isolating. It's kind of like where I grew up,
It's
but
hard. There's not, I wanna go back to New Jersey. I'm just
uh,
scared of my ex finding out, so I'm just, like, trying to keep it open on, like, moving somewhere better,
yeah,
no matter where it is.
yeah.
But, there's nothing here. There's anywhere you have to go is, like, an hour away, and it's super difficult. And
When
there's
you
nobody that is into the same interests here, and I don't know. But I'm working on it, because that's part of the challenge. That's part of my lesson, is to, just like everything else in my life, to go over that hurdle. Not that nothing is supposed to be easy for me, but it's about me making that connection, as opposed to, like, I don't know. You get what I mean?
No, I do. I was gonna say, when you do move, because you will, right? Like there's this force that's like pulling you, right? Like sometimes we worry about it, but at the same time you're not worried about it, because you're like, I'm gonna get to where I'm gonna be going.
Yeah, I know I'll get there. I just wish it was now.
Yes. When you do move, okay, just remember that everything doesn't have to be super based in spirituality, even though we want that, and you will have people who do get you. You are like me and a couple of our other friends that, like, even in spirituality, we don't resonate with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so it's like very few and far in between who actually, like, even within spirituality, like we
It's true.
align with, right? So your higher self is saying, hey, not everything has to be based in that. If we can find things that people have common missions and connect with them over that, like volunteer projects or hiking groups or art classes, like whatever it is that interests you, that's like really high vibe and around high vibe people that are there to learn and grow and evolve with one another. Don't pigeonhole it to just spirituality, because you're on another frequency even than most people in spirituality. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult for you to even connect with those persons sometimes. Does that make sense? But you will find those
Absolutely.
persons. I found those persons in my life
Yeah.
that I do, but I also had to learn the lesson of not every relationship is going to be like that, and not everyone needs to be like that either.
Yeah. I'm trying not to hyper focus on it. I'm just trying to, when things are too complicated for me, I just break them down into smaller steps or like smaller goals.
Yeah.
So what I've been doing is, now that I have a car, because I didn't have a car for a while, and it's super hard here when you don't have a car and you just have to meet your basic needs. That's what I was focusing on for a while. I'm just trying to find like a small group or of something. It could be like, I don't know, whatever, some sort of activity to even take my youngest to, and we just go and do that. Or like tonight, I'm trying to go out to dinner with both my kids, and we're just, these other XYZ 3D world, 3D plane things. Aside, I'm not focusing on those like I was before. It's about the end goal, or like, whatever what happens when we go out, or like, I don't know. I'm just trying to be open about everything, and just not hyper focus on where I know I'm going, because I want to get there now. I'm just leaving that to the side as like a little surprise and moving on.
Yeah, like what can I do right now? And let's
Yeah, to
focus on
get
that.
there.
Right.
Because
That's good, because that depersonalization thing that you got going on too, sometimes we can do that and not be checked into our current reality. And we're like, oh,
absolutely.
so focused on this over here that we're not actually clinked in over here. So that's good that you're doing that.
I'm doing that
Yes.
as like moving energy. Like I realized to myself, you can't stay stagnant, or you're never, I watch a lot of Bashar.
Okay.
You
Same.
have to move. You have to like obviously follow your highest excitement, but it doesn't always have to be excited. You just have to move
Yeah.
energy, whether it's getting bad energy out or like doing something nice for yourself or whatever. Even if it's
Mhm.
small accomplishments, it gets something going.
Okay, even if it's washing the dishes, like, okay, that's forward movement today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we're about to get into it with this Akasha stuff.
I've been trying to do that because I was taught to reinforce that. And so even if like I could be sitting and reading a book, or just like, I don't know, sitting on the couch, it doesn't matter. I would always beat myself up that I wasn't doing enough. And even when I did something or did a lot of things, I would still beat myself up about it. So yeah, I try to celebrate everything.
Oh yeah, I'm in the phase right now where I'm actually telling my body, like my human and the trauma and everything, I'm not going to let you do anything right now.
Okay.
Like yesterday I had a day like that where my physical body was just so tired, and I was like, we are going to sit and watch anime for 6 hours. And I know that it's going to be, and I didn't say 6 hours, but like we're going to do
Yeah.
like a long
But
snack.
it's okay.
And I know that it's going to disturb us to do that, but we need to realize that that's okay.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah,
fine.
I like, we have to rest. Okay. Like it is going, like we have to do that. And that is still, and I don't like to quantify it as that, but it's still doing something. Like we're always doing things,
Yeah.
right? Like, but some of those things take a lot more energy than others. And some of them are rooted in trauma or capitalism or, all these different things where like it's also okay to just exist.
Yeah, we think too
Right.
much. We're too hard on
Yes.
ourselves about too many different things, and it's like, just take it easy, take it one step at a time,
Yes.
and leave yourself alone. Like, and the other thing, I treat other people so nicely, and I got caught up in for the longest time, like, why does everyone treat me like crap when all I do is treat other people nicely? Because that whole karma thing, like, they'll get their karma, or if you're good to other
Mhm.
people, they'll be good to you. Yeah, well, not in my life, but I still treated other people that way anyway. And then I started to turn it to myself. Why am I treating myself this way when I don't like it when other people do that to me, and I don't do that to other people? So why am I the exception? And that started to like shine light, where I'll catch myself doing those things and work on it or whatever.
Well, there's actually a deeper reason to that, and that's one of the things we're about to discuss here because it has to do with one of your other incarnations. And so it's
Yay.
funny that you just brought that up. So we're about to dive into that. Do you mind if I run to the restroom really
Me
quick?
too.
Yay. Okay. I'm going to pause this. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So do you have connections with different incarnations of yourself already?
Probably, but not that I'm fully aware of. I've always I'll just say no, I'm not gonna get into anything. I don't
Okay.
think so anyway.
Can you
Well,
hear? Go ahead.
maybe. I have a lot of ties into like I know that obviously there's things that I just know with my clear cognizance, I guess is what I should say. Like
Mhm.
I know I have deep ties with like spirituality, witchcraft, there's other things that I'm deeply attracted to. Like I belly dance now, or I've been belly dancing for a little while, like Middle Eastern, um,
Mhm.
just really deep. I can't even explain it. I just know when it comes that it's like something that I've been connected with for a long time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so you're channeling different facets of yourself, but you haven't been necessarily as intentional with connecting in with specific
Like what it
persons
was,
within your
yeah, and
Akashic
like the
field.
50s, and different periods of my life, I was super obsessed with different things. So like for the longest time when in my teens and early 20s, I was obsessed with like 50s stuff, and then
Mhm.
at one point specifically 40s era, and I was like watching all the media, consuming all the things, and like it really felt like home to me at those times. I have a deep fear of heights. And at first, I blamed my mother. I thought it was something that she instilled in me, but for a specific reason. But then I realized later, I think it's probably something to do with something I experienced in past lives, and I don't know.
Okay. Well, this will be a good jumping point because sometimes if we have tangible persons to actually speak with, kind of like our higher self is a tangible form, right? It's a lot easier to connect and find answers and
Yeah,
receive
I'm
guidance.
looking into going down that path eventually. That's what I was gonna say before. Is like I used to look for people that would do like past life regressions and stuff like that, but then I gave up on that for a while. But now I'm back into that for whatever reason. So if I
Yeah.
don't do it myself, I might try and seek someone.
Well, I'm going to tell you about two of them today that you
Okay.
can connect with, and you can start there if you want a jumping point. Okay. Have you seen the movie Onward? It's like
No.
these two elf brothers. I think it's a Pixar film.
Oh, I know what it is. I've heard of it, but and I've like seen like I've seen the
Like the
whatever,
trailer.
like you're
Yeah.
online, like the
The movie poster.
advertisements. But I
Yes.
didn't watch it, I don't think.
You should watch that because what when you left me the notes guidance on my path onwards and upwards, your higher self was like, "Oh, tell her about the movie Onward." Because you're going to get some downloads from it and I'm going to explain
Okay.
why here in a second. Okay.
Okay.
So,
Is
and
my
you also
cat is she coming up in the background? Do you want me to
Oh no.
she's banging
Mm-mm.
on the door and meowing.
No,
Okay.
no,
All
no.
right.
Even if she was, it's fine. Other
Okay.
animals come through the screen all the time when I'm doing these sessions. They're like
Okay.
to the energy.
She's just
uh,
banging and meowing.
yeah, she's fine.
Okay.
So when I went into your energy field, speaking like jump starting off of that movie Onward, which you can watch with the kids, it's super cute, very magical, very fun. Uh, I met with your energy body, and at first I thought it was your energy body. It was actually a different timeline version of yourself. And she asked me to follow her, and then we went down to these caves, like these cave systems, and I was like, okay. So we're traveling down there, and I was asking her about herself, and I said, "Oh, you're an adventurer." So in this context, an adventurer is somebody, for this specifically, is somebody who helps other people find different types of texts and books and artifacts and
That's
devices that
fun.
are outside of this human incarnation, and it's things within their akasha field that they need to, it's like a key activator.
Mhm.
It's actually something that I do as well, like when I'm going into people's fields, I'll just find things from their different incarnations or things that their higher self wants them to have that have been lost, or it's supposed to help them somehow in this incarnation, or it's supposed to connect them to different timeline versions of themselves, or help them download cosmic history or things about their DNA lineages, but they're actual like physical items that you retrieve and then you relay to the other person, and it like unlocks something in their memories, right? And so
Mhm.
your higher self was saying that this different version of you is somebody that you can channel from and learn that gift. Like you already have it within you, like you already have the encodements,
Mhm.
but she can help you remember that in its full totality.
I Somebody talked about this. I get downloads and messages through I mean, we all do, but this
Yeah.
is like wrong for me. I get messages everywhere, like they're constantly coming through videos, this, that, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm dying inside when you're explaining that because I saw somebody talk about something similar that they went through or they did where they traveled on a different timeline, something about a teddy bear and bringing it back,
Yeah.
whatever. That stuck in my mind so deeply. It'll come back up every once in a while, and I felt like I felt so connected to that, and like it's something I could do or I wanted to do, and I kept asking myself, "How do I figure that out?" And then every once in a while, I'll get like another message from like a video, something similar to that will come up, like of other people doing that or just talking about that in general. So
Oh,
it's
you
a
know
really
what's funny is that teddy bear was probably for another person, but it was also for you in that video.
yeah.
That's it. It was a key activator, right?
Mhm.
So the way that I have amplified that gift within myself, because I haven't always, I mean, I have done that, but I haven't been consciously aware that I have been doing it. And then when I was consciously aware, it's like, oh, all it happens all the time now, right?
Yeah.
So anything with the Akasha field, okay, like any movies and TV shows and books and all this stuff, there's like slivers of truth in it. Right, like
I'm
it's coming from
always
somewhere,
getting
from the
that.
higher
Yeah.
field, right? Okay, so, or like, you know, a lot of these mythos and stuff like those are actually their own realities that people are
Yeah.
downloading, channeling. Okay,
Yeah.
so you need to be watching adventure content, like
Okay.
fantasy adventure books, fantasy like movies, TV shows, things like that, specifically about adventuring, because they have these type of like items in there that they're like searching for, like Enchiridion books and like
Yeah.
wands and all this stuff, right?
I was obsessed with that stuff as a
So
kid.
yeah, okay. So
I still
those things
am.
don't matter as much
Yeah.
because it's not actually about those things that you're learning about. There's similar energetic signatures that those things carry. So when you go to somebody else's field, you're going to be able to
Okay.
see a wider variety of items because you have this key in your subconscious. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah,
So like when I'm
absolutely.
watching anime and movies and all this stuff, all of these items that I'm seeing with my human physical 3D reality eyes are actually just prepping me for things that I need to see
Yeah. I
in
know
other
exactly what
people's
you're
fields.
talking about.
Yeah,
I've
okay.
done it before in other applications. Yeah, I've done it
Yes.
before in other applications. Like I'll see something somewhere and it's like letting me it is, it's prepping me for
Yeah.
something else that's about to happen because that thing happens and I'm like, "Hey, that other
Yeah.
thing that I saw." Yeah, I've always done that for
So
it's
she
getting
she
stronger. It's getting like
yes.
I'm getting more I'm becoming more sensitive. I'm becoming more in tune with different things. So it's more frequent now. We're to the point where I laugh because it's everywhere. It's hilarious.
Well, she's going to help you download the entire template because you only have fractions of the template right now
Right.
because of just where you're at in your journey. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't time for you to have the template.
I needed to get out of that. That's why I was placed here. I needed to even if I wanted to and I tried. I took all kinds of classes. Like I found my people. Like I was doing
Mhm.
all kinds of things to get myself where I needed to go. And I realized my entire timeline shifted because of and I needed to learn, I guess, whatever I needed to learn, but because he was there, he was blocking everything. Uh Sometimes he'd be okay with it, sometimes it would make him angry, and then he was
Yeah.
causing these disruptions, and plus everyone else in there was a lot of other problems. I felt like to my late 20s, I was supposed to be in a specific place, like more activated, whatever. And that all completely shifted. And now I know why. It's because I had to get out of that situation completely removed. And now I feel like I'm back on track. So that kind of is in line with what you said
Yeah,
earlier.
you had to, yeah, all that stuff can't come with you.
I had to reset
All
all of
that
it.
stuff
Yeah,
can't come with you. So you're at the homeostasis point right now of the
absolutely.
new reality. So anything up from here is going to be up, onward and upward. Okay. So when you utilize this gift with others, because you will in the future,
Yeah,
right? When you do sessions or whatever you end up doing with this is going to
yeah,
be a really prevalent gift for you. It's going to be one of the biggest things of like helping people like find these key
okay.
activators. Okay. So when I was speaking with her, all of a sudden I kept on hearing the word Methuselah being yelled very loudly. And I was like, okay, I hear you. Okay, I said, what's going on with Methuselah? Because I haven't heard that in forever. Do you know who that is?
Um, I forget, but
Okay,
I
we'll go over it. Okay, so Methuselah, and take this with a grain of salt. Okay, because this is biblical roots.
yeah.
Okay. Sometimes these persons are more like archetypes. Sometimes they are real persons, but they're not exactly depicted in the way that they actually were. So we're just going to go with the archetype of him. Okay. So I said, what's going on with Methuselah? And this different version of you, the adventurer, she said, oh, I know him. She said, I knew him back in the day. And I said, okay. So Methuselah, oh my gosh, is the son of Enoch and the grandfather of Noah.
Okay.
Okay, he is quote unquote, which I don't think that this is accurate because Egyptians probably lived a lot longer. Okay, but he was quote unquote the longest living human there ever was. He lived 969 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the reason that you need to have this connection with Methuselah is because during this incarnation, you are going to be part of the team that help humanity live longer, like in the new earth paradigm. Okay. So Methuselah, you don't have direct communication with him, but the reason that the adventurer is coming is because she knows him. And because she knows him, you can bypass through your Akasha fields and meet with him. And y'all have similar energetic signatures. So he will help you have the download, the integration that you need in order to do that. Now, in saying that, I was doing another person's energy reading like a couple months ago, and I was taken to this field that had mushrooms, not like the mushrooms here on Earth, like these intergalactic mushrooms that help you with your telomeres. And your
Okay.
telomeres are the end caps on your chromosomes,
Yeah.
and they regulate a lot of things like health, but they also, when they start to deteriorate, that's actually what causes us to age.
Mm-hmm.
And these mushrooms can actually help you extend the lifespan of your telomeres.
Wow.
And your higher self is saying that you can travel to this mushroom field and actually start working with the woman who oversees them
Mm-hmm.
alongside working with Methuselah. And then you'll get that template that you need in order to help with that new earth paradigm with helping humanity live longer.
Okay.
Okay. There's also, have you seen Fantastic Fungi?
I love, I can't remember his name, Paul Stamets. Isn't he in Fantastic Fungi?
I'm not sure.
I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched part of it. Paul Stamets is I don't know what you call a mushroomologist, I forget.
Yeah.
I almost became, you know what's hilarious? I went to school for biology and I almost became a specialist for mushrooms because I
Yeah.
became so obsessed
That
with them.
tracks.
And I
Okay.
loved everything about them, dissecting them, learning about them. I was like, I did I meet Paul Stamets? I either met him or I don't know. I was going to all these like conferences about
Mm-hmm.
mushrooms and like I went on mushroom walks
Mm-hmm. Well,
and
it's prepping you for this. It is
you
prepping you
brought
to get
up
ready for this.
no, you brought it's totally I keep making faces because I like to interrupt and talk a lot when I get excited.
You're fine.
Uh he so you brought up about
Methuselah?
time, about
Okay, yeah.
him being like the old living longer. I have known that. I have had fragments. I didn't know that, but I've had fragments of that knowledge because as you said it, it completed the
Yeah,
feeling that
it came in. Yeah, the
life.
template's coming in. Yeah, okay.
Um, I have been obsessed with like when I was a little kid, I was obsessed with Rip Van Winkle, like how he
Okay.
just like fell asleep and he was living forever.
Yeah.
But there's like other knowings that I've had going forward about living longer, and it's not a vain thing. It's not like, oh, I don't want to get old, blah blah, whatever. It's like something deep inside about living longer or like extending. I don't know, but when you
Yeah, you have
explained
more time to
it kind of
experience
filled
stuff
in the
here.
blanks of why I felt that way this whole time.
Yeah, yeah,
Wild.
yeah. Okay, so you need to watch Fantastic Fungi for the next part I'm about to tell you. Okay,
Okay.
one, watching Fantastic Fungi is going to be the energetic bridgeway point for you to be able to access these fields with that with the woman who guards them, or not guards them, but she like
Yeah.
takes care of them, right?
I've been
Which
putting it off too. Like I have it on my list to watch it, but
it
something's
just
been like
wasn't time.
I've
Wasn't
been
time.
like meh. I started to watch one. I was like, meh.
Watch that, because that again is going to be your connector to these fields.
Okay.
Um, there is also a tree on Earth, and its name is Methuselah, and
Okay.
it is 4,800 years old. It is the oldest tree on Earth. And in the movie Fantastic Fungi, it talks about how trees and mushrooms are interconnected under a mycelium network underneath, right? So your higher self was saying that in watching Fantastic Fungi and then having these connections that we're talking about, you're actually going to be working with the tree Methuselah as well to download a chunk of the template.
I've been getting more into trees, connection with trees lately too. I always have this like like I said, the my clear cognizance has always been it guides me. Like it's connected obviously with my intuition, and I follow it like a skateboard. Like I just sit on it and I like, where's that taking me? Okay, because it gives me this feeling like that I should be doing this thing, I should be watching that,
Mm-hmm.
and it always
Yep.
tracks. It always tracks. Like I get
Well,
off
that's
track.
part of your adventurer thing too. That's part of your adventurer. Like
Yeah.
you have to have these type of like 3D connectors in order to help you like traverse through the etheric realms,
Yeah.
like in the Akasha. Like you have to have these tether points.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. And one leads me to the other, and I've
Yep.
been always doing that. That's really neat.
We're gonna talk about this timeline that is gonna help you learn how to do soul fragment healing.
Okay.
Okay.
I've been interested in that lately. I
Yes.
just I did like I did like a shamanic soul retrieval like a couple years ago with somebody, but it circled its way back to me recently, and it's not something that I necessarily have been reading about. It's been coming to me
Mhm.
like through videos, through messages, through like everybody's talking about soul fragment healing everywhere I go, and I'm like, okay, I get it, but what do you want me to do with it right now? I don't know.
Well, the way that
So
you get
it's
into
coming.
soul fragment healing, one, inner child healing
Mhm.
is a form of fragment healing. So the reason that you are able to do this now is because you have learned how to, when you're still learning, but learning how to soul fragment heal with them.
Yeah, that's part
Okay.
of why I went through what I went through is because I'm
Yes.
going to be doing this for other people, and I know this, but it still sucked.
I know it still does. Like it's okay that it sucked for argument. Like it's like that was terrible. But the only way that you can help other people soul fragment heal is if you heal a soul fragment within yourself so you can reach those depths within others.
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk about this
Okay.
lady. Okay. So
Okay.
when I
I feel
was
like I'm
asked,
almost at the end of it, but there's still more to go for like my like fully healing myself if we're ever fully healed. But like before things start
yeah,
happening for me, like helping other people and stuff like that is what I mean.
I do know what you mean. Yeah, you're like at the tail, you're like, okay, now I'm about to be over that hump and I can just
Yeah.
actually start. Yes. Yeah.
Things are like on the precipice. I'm like starting to shift closer and closer to wherever it is I'm supposed to go. And I think that's the hardest part because something's coming, but then like the back of your head is like, when? Yeah, right. You've been saying this for how long now?
Which is funny because that goes against our clear cognizant abilities because it's
Yeah,
like, well, if I really had all this clear cognizance, then I would just be able to
yeah.
know.
I had a reading with someone like in November, and that's what she told me. She was like, you're highly claircognizant, but you have to stop if you want to like strengthen your abilities. I get caught up with um doubting myself. That's not the word I was looking for, but like my claircognizance will come in and then it's like I don't believe it. So she said trust yourself more is what it is. So that's what I've been trying to work towards. Because we always try to be skeptical about it, like maybe I made that up, but I've been doing I will body double because I have ADHD. I'm late diagnosed ADHD and autistic, and my son, had to fight for his diagnosis, but he is as well. um I'll body double with him where like
Mhm.
I'm sure
I
you know what
love
that is.
body doubling. Yeah.
I've always been doing that and I didn't know what it was like, and he's very spiritual as both of my kids are, but my oldest shut it off for a while. My youngest is very much like me, he's very much into it. He takes my tarot cards and he's messing with them, so lately I've been body doubling with him, and
Mhm.
I just go I act like I'm a kid. I just go with everything that I say as if it's truth, as if it's a message, like completely delirious, just for a little while we're practicing divination or something like that. And I think it's super helpful. And I'll do it like randomly throughout the day too. Just like if something comes in, I acknowledge it. It doesn't matter if it's real or if it's fake. I acknowledge it. I always get like these tingles on the top of my head. I'm pretty sure it's somebody else, whether it's from my spirit team or like somebody else coming into my field, letting me know that they're here, because it's very specific. It's been happening for a long time. It'll be like tingles on the top of my head over here or over here, sometimes down my arm. And it's always very specific. I've never been able to gather who it is or hear them or whatever. And that would bother me. And then I guess that's what would stagnate me. So lately I'm just like, I feel you. I acknowledge you. You know, what do you want me to know? And then I just let it go. If I don't find out anything, that's fine.
Yeah, also just because we're clear cognizant of a lot of things doesn't mean that we have to apply that stuff. Like we have a lot of input coming in
Yeah. And so
constantly.
I let it go. I don't need to know everything.
Yeah,
I
just
think
run it
that's
through your
what,
filtration system of like, do I actually need this? Because
do
a
I
lot of
need to
times
know
it's
that?
stuff I
That's
do not
exactly what
need.
it is.
Yeah.
Because my issue with always being claircognizant is I always need to know everything and I always need to know why. And I guess part of being autistic, which I don't know a whole lot about what that's like. I don't know if that means anything to me at this point, but like I always need to know why. I always need to dig deeper. Like, why is this thing functioning? Or like, why is it doing that? How does this work? And I'm learning to like let that be, especially with being more connected and into my higher self and multidimensional and whatever. Because I feel like that puts a damper on it always, because then you're expecting something, and when you don't get that something, you're like, oh well, this never worked to begin with, I stink.
Well, if you need any evidence-based reasons to believe yourself and your color cognizance, today is the day with all of the synchronization that we have had. Okay. Let me tell you about this woman. Okay. So when I was asking your higher self if there was anything that you needed to focus on, like any obstacles, and I'll be real honest with you, like when I'm doing sessions with people, sometimes there's a lot of like 3D things that need to be brought to the surface to be worked through. You don't really have any of that stuff. Like we've already cleared out most of the 3D things that we have going on. So that's why we're going deeper now into the Akasha field.
Yeah.
So if that gives you any like confidence in what you've been doing, okay. So I said, is there anything that she needed to work on? All of a sudden I felt all this fire in my heart chakra, like so much fire and anger and bitterness and like all this stuff not coming from you, coming from somewhere, right? And when I went in to see what was going on that timeline, there was a town that had been set on fire. Everything was burning. Everything in this town was burning. Everybody was perished. Like everything was horrible. And this woman was standing there watching it. And I was like, oh, who are you? And she's a different timeline version of you. Okay. So I said, I told her why I was here for you and asked her if she had any guidance or wisdom. And she said, why would I want to help humanity? She said, I have no love for the humans at all. She said, look at what they're doing over here. Like it was humans that had like waged war on themselves. And she has seen that through multitudes of timelines and lifetimes. Okay. So I asked her because she was holding this staff in her hand. I said, are you a magician? And she said, no. And I was like, oh, are you a sorcerer? Are you an enchantress or enchantress? What's going on here? And she said, I don't have a label. I said, okay. And she said, do not go by labels. Just know she's a very powerful lady. Okay.
That tracks.
Very powerful lady. Okay. And I asked her if she knew about the adventurer timeline, the one that we had talked about previously. And she said, I know of her. And I said, okay. And she was not very happy. Okay. And I was explaining to her what you were going to be helping people with in this lifetime, just like kind of like generally. And she was very anti that. She was like, no. She was like, no, because you're not human, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like you're more alien-esque, more multidimensional than you are human, right? Like you're closer to ancient magic, if you will. So she was
her. Well,
you,
she is.
you.
Yeah.
and the adventurer. And so she was kind of like classifying all y'all together as like not human. And she was like, no, she does not need to go help the humans.
Okay.
Okay. So in this lifetime, you've probably felt that way of like, I'm so sick and tired of people, of the
Yeah,
humans. Okay.
absolutely. For a very
Right.
long time.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
even said when I was younger that I would never have children because it's very alien-like and it's disgusting how they like, they're like a parasite in your body.
Yeah.
Very much when I was a teenager, and I will go through periods of, and then that's why I'm laughing of feeling that way. And
Yes.
one short thing, so I'd stop interrupting and going on tangents, is
It's okay.
the fire
Hmm.
movies. You know how they always have like a village burning and like all these
Yes.
other things. I feel so connected to that at one point I asked myself, why do I feel so connected to that? Am I looking to like have my village burned down? Like, what is this? I will
No, you're
cry
looking through
every
her
single
eyes.
time, like I've been through it.
You're looking through her eye. You can see her memories.
But I'll cry. Like I get so upset. I'll
Yeah.
cry. I feel like I'm there. Like I've even dissociated I think there was a video game that I played where like everything in the village was falling down and burning and you're like going through it. I completely dissociated through the whole thing. Like I was actually living it.
Because you can see through your other timelines. This is what your channels are very, very open, even though you haven't been like consciously aware that you're connected to all these other timelines.
Yeah.
But that's also what makes you so vastly different from the majority of people, is because you have so much input that is coming in from all of these multidimensional layers.
I
And
feel
so
that.
you're not grounded in human reality as much.
I
And
never
so it
have been.
makes, right. So it makes you very disconnected from other people. That's why you have to continue to try and find peers,
Yeah.
because they're there. They're out there. Like I
Yeah.
found my peers too. But right, you just have like a whole different reality scape than everybody else, right? And
I've always felt
so
like an alien, so it's funny that
you,
you
yeah, because you are an alien. You're much you have not been a human for very long. Okay. So,
that
so
makes so much sense.
yes.
As a child, I always felt like I used to ask if my parents were alien, like because I just don't feel like
Yeah.
I'm like connected with them. Well, for a lot of other reasons,
You
but
don't have
and
a lot of, you
other,
don't have a lot of human DNA is what I'm trying to say. Like you don't have a lot of human lineages, and so you're very
yeah,
disconnected from the experience.
I
But
kind of
you
understood that.
chose to come here for a reason. Okay.
Yeah. So what's interesting is like other people talk about how they feel connected to like all these other Pleiadians, this, that, whatever. I don't feel that. I don't feel that at all. I don't feel called to like any of the star seed
Oh, yeah.
stuff.
I think because you're okay.
I mean, it doesn't have to be that, I guess.
You have in your field, you have primordial, oh, I'm gonna butcher yourself saying, you have primordial connections that are outside of this galaxy.
Okay.
So that's why these things don't resonate with you, because you can actually unconsciously but consciously see these
Yeah.
timelines that are like, so like your expansive window is outside of
Of
what we
what we
have
currently
here,
know.
right?
Yeah.
So that's why these things don't connect with
Okay.
you, because
That makes sense.
they would if you didn't have such a big scape, because it's
That
like,
makes
okay, well, yeah, I've lived all these different places, but if you're further back than that,
yeah.
it's like,
I
oh, well, I don't care about all this stuff.
wouldn't
Like I
know.
want to figure out what's going on back there.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank
Okay.
you.
So, because she's not from here, she's like from some other outside.
Okay.
She's from some other place. Okay. So, um, I was explaining to her about this lifetime, because her timeline is not in this lineage scape. And I was showing her like where we're headed as a collective, and that is not quite the same as experience as she's had like in her different timelines, because of the ascension path that we're on, like the new earth
Yeah.
paradigm, like all the stuff we're moving into, right? And I said it would probably be really beneficial if you have a conversation with Jackie. Okay, I said, because Jackie would be able to help you see with greater clarity of why humanity is worth saving or worth supporting. Okay, let's say that.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
humanity is worth supporting. Okay. And she was like, and I'm gonna say this, and it sounds
fine.
rude. Okay. But she said, what am I gonna learn from her?
Sounds like me. It
Okay.
sounds like me.
And I
We're
said,
good.
okay, first of all, I said, you need to learn compassion. I had a very direct conversation with her. I was like, you need to learn compassion. I said, sometimes when we're judging other people, it's because we're actually judging ourselves.
Yeah.
I said, do you want to continue to live in bitterness and anger and resentment for the rest of your days? Because that's where you're headed. Talking to her, not you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
And she was like, something in her when I was saying those things, because I don't think anybody has like reality checked her in a while.
Yeah.
Okay. She's very uppity is not the right word, but just like very
I
like
got it.
okay.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, this is not a good path for you, right? And I said, Jackie can actually teach you compassion and empathy. I said, you really need that. And at the same time, she can help you vastly up level your magical abilities.
Okay.
Vastly. She's a very ancient being. She knows a lot. But this is, you don't have to do this because she got a nitty gritty personality that you can
I
have to.
actually like people like that.
Okay. She's very direct. She's very open, honest, direct. So if that's what you like.
I'm very good at interacting with people like that for some reason.
Okay.
And usually they come off really blunt with me and also other people, but eventually they like me because I can give it back to them.
Yes. Yes. I think y'all honestly would be a very good energetic match for one another. And I don't think that you always see how compassionate you are. Like I know that you know that you're compassionate, but I
Yeah.
don't think that you always see the
No,
totality of
I
that.
will
That's
sometimes, yeah, no, you're
yeah.
correct.
That's one
I
of
will
your
question
core
myself.
personality traits, your core archetype.
Yeah.
It's a holder of compassion.
Yeah. I still like with all the things we talked about with my ex. This is my issue that I've had. It's a blessing and a curse, but it's more of a blessing now. Going through all the things that I went through with him, and still to this day, when I'm okay, when I'm stable, I hold compassion for him and love for him.
Mhm.
And maybe when I was going through it, it's like, I hope you rot and I hope you die, because that was really
Yeah.
messed up. And now I'm like traumatized quadruple. But
Yes.
once I'm like back, I know why he's that way.
Yeah, we can see the layers, but it also doesn't mean that we need to give them an excuse.
Exactly. That's
And it
what I
doesn't
had
mean
to
they're going to
learn.
meet us on this plane either. Just because I know
That's
you
what I
have
had
hurt little inner
to
children
learn.
babies in here and they need
That's what
love,
kept
doesn't
me
need
up
to come
so
from me
long.
though. Yeah.
Because I
Yes.
could see like all his trauma points. I can literally like, I know why he's this way. I know why he's that way. I know why this happened. I know why that happened. And some of it he can tell me, some of it he didn't have to tell me. I just know. And I would keep going back to him because I'm like, I see this in him. I think a lot of empaths do that. I see
Mhm.
this in him, and like, and he's treated me this way sometimes. So I know he can be this way, but like, no, because he has a lot of things to work through that are not my business. And I can't force him to learn these things in this lifetime, and I need to focus on myself. And obviously I didn't learn that as a child. I had to learn everything the hard way. And so that's the blessing and the curse, is that I can see where people are. Even my father, and I hated him for the longest time, I don't know a whole lot about him either. But I don't hold people to like with these grudges or like hold these things against them, and I will still maybe interact with them or still wish them well. And I used to think something was wrong with me for the longest time for doing that, because they did me wrong, and I was afraid I was putting myself in a compromisable position by being that way for them to hurt me again. But that's where I had to learn recently the difference between like, you know, boundaries, hello, they exist, and and also holding space for them so they can, get whatever it is that they deserve. That's good, their own healing, their own whatever.
Yes. Their higher self is not always going to meet us on this plane. Their human sometimes is not on board, or they didn't soul contract for that, or it's not your responsibility to
Yeah.
be the person that pushes them towards that.
I had to
So
let all of
yes,
that go.
we can still hold compassion, but also we can also not let people into our inner circle.
Yeah, I had to let that
Yes.
go because my inner core wound, my inner child core wound was like disappointing people and making them upset with me. I could feel like a hot knife in my
Oh yeah.
midsection
Yeah.
part down to my solar plexus when people were angry with me, even if it's something I didn't do and they were just mad and they
Mhm.
project it towards me. I catch it and I keep it and I hold on to it like it's sacred. Or I did. And so I was terrified of not meeting others' expectations, and that I don't know where I was going with that, but that I carried that for way too long.
What I would say over them too is we need to meet our own expectations before we meet anybody else's.
Yeah. Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Because you're always going to be a compassionate, loving, beautiful soul. But sometimes that energy needs to be reserved for specific persons and
Absolutely.
for specific soul missions and soul paths. Like the
Yeah.
way you're going to be doing, like we don't have time and energy to be doing a lot of heavy grunt work with all these persons that are not choosing to be on a self-awareness path because you are supposed to be helping people that are on those paths, right? So we need to conserve that for who it is meant for, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So she is going to, if you decide to connect with her, she is going to teach you the old ways, is what she said. I'm not saying that she's reluctant to do this, but she is also not super on board with helping the humans. Okay, so in turn, you are going to help her heal through that.
Yeah.
Okay, and one of the ways that you can do that is what your higher self was saying is one, you do not need to get caught up in um, a lot of heaviness things that are going on in the 3D plane here. You need to be very aware and hyper focused on people who are doing things to lift humanity up, like that are doing great things out in the world on like a big scale sometimes a smaller scale, right? But are really propelling humanity forward because just like you can see her through her eyes, she can see through yours.
Ah.
So you focusing on these things and creating this kind of reality algorithm for her where all she's seeing is kind of like where we're headed and all these
Okay.
people who are helping and like all these things, which is going to help you in this reality too, because then that's going to propel you to a different reality because you're kind of like getting up out of the muck and being on these high vibrations and higher frequencies so that you
Yeah.
can do the work that you're meant to be doing here as well. So it's going to help both
Okay.
of you in tandem.
Okay.
The adventurer is also going to help you with that template. So you can go in meditation and talk with both of them. You can have a group of ladies meeting in there if you want. Okay, because she knows the adventurer. She was like, yeah, I know of her, but she was saying it like that because that adventurer is also like pro humans and pro humanity, and so she's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I know her too. Okay, so but all of you can help one another grow and excel. Yeah, and they're going to help you with these templates and expanding your soul mission, your soul path. But I will say too, it has probably been a unconscious fear of yours to move forward on this path because you're already so different from everybody, and this is only going to make it like exponentially like different.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you do decide to like fully clink onto this path, which I think today is kind of your marker here, that's when the people start coming out of the woodworks.
Okay.
Like the people that are like you know what I mean? And they
Yeah.
start finding you because your auric field and your energetic field are like this big beacon.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, I'm like you, right? And now they can feel that because now you're resonating with that within yourself of like, oh no, I am this person. I am going to stand strong in
Yeah.
this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I've been doing lately is like I'm just completely standing in who I am and like in ways that I never could before. Like I've always known who I was, but I was still unsure about it because I just wanted somebody to like me or I just
Yeah.
wanted like I just wanted things to be normal for once. And I think the only thing that's always held me back from actually stepping onto that path is like now that I have the kids is how is this I'm like waiting. I don't know what I'm waiting for. I'm like waiting for is this going to be stable? I think I'm so used to everything being unstable that I'm like what if I try to do this and either nothing happens, I'm not helpful to other people, what am I supposed to be doing for them? Like all these questions about like the outcome, right?
Mm-hmm.
Without putting in the work. If that makes sense.
You well, one, you've done the work, okay, to be to be able to be at this point, okay. But okay, you have not a limited viewscape right now because you have all of these multidimensional like channel connections, but when you are locking these new architectural structures within yourself and also connecting with these different facets like her over here let's just call her the magician for right now. And then this adventurer over here, your viewscape of reality is going to completely shift, and you're going to have so much more accessible to you tools and resources and understandings, and like vastly beyond what you
I've
have
always
had.
felt like a blanket, like
Yeah,
something
that's what's
like
been happening.
I know it's there, but they're keeping me like separate from it for a reason because I think I was supposed to
Well, it's
work.
the old life. You can't
Yeah.
have all that stuff in the old life.
It's
Like,
been that way since I was little.
yeah.
Like they would ask me when I was little what I wanted to be when I grew up, and they would try and force me to say like, you know, a fireman or whatever, and I would tell them no, I don't want to be, because I knew, like I've always known, I know the feeling, and when it comes to me, I'll know that that's it. It's so weird,
Yeah,
but
well, it's also when I meet with advanced persons, a lot of times they don't wake up until later, because if you did, especially if you have like kids and stuff, there's a lot of like negative things that could happen in your 3D reality. Like we
yeah,
could end up institutionalized.
yeah.
We
I
could have
almost
our
I'm
kids
very well,
taken. There's a lot of things. So this is why we've kind of had to like sever
yeah,
ties with the old reality so that we're safe to move forward. So
and I always
you're
felt like
you are
I,
absolutely going to be able to utilize all these things that your higher self is saying. It's also okay that we're in a chapter where we are grounding further into our human and our 3D reality
yeah,
so that we are where we want to be and doing the things, and having the safety and the security and all of that. So that way we can kind of like soar and take off when it's time. So that's kind of more of the chapter that you're in right now of like, I need to get my human situated.
yeah, that's
Does that
very
make
much what I
sense?
feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very much what I
And you got
feel.
to
Yeah.
take that day by day sometimes. Sometimes it's just
And
day
that's
by
what
day.
exactly what I've been doing.
And it's frustrating though, because time, you know how time works. Like you are,
Yeah,
or how it doesn't work, right? Like you
yeah.
understand, like, and you're like,
No,
I'm
no,
sitting
exactly.
here trying to
Hurry up.
work within these 24-hour day periods, which is bullshit. Okay. Right? Like for somebody who doesn't necessarily has not lived within human physical realms before,
Well, that makes so much
you're
sense
like,
now.
this is not computing.
Yes,
Okay. Right?
that
Because
makes so much sense now.
yeah, you're trying to, okay, time works in blocks. Okay. It works in blocks. You're not used to working in blocks.
Okay.
You're used to working outside of that construct.
Yeah,
Okay.
I very
And
much feel that.
okay, yes. So that's why it feels so incredibly slow.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can feel the change in time. Like when
Yeah. It's getting more lucid. Yeah.
it's faster now. The last year it was very slow. Everything was very slow moving, and now all of a sudden it shifts a little bit, but everything's moving faster now.
Well, you're moving to the new paradigm where we're not working in blocks.
Okay.
So you're getting closer to what is an actual resonance with how you've lived previously in different
Yeah.
incarnations, right? So but you're still traversing over.
Yeah.
Like your human has to be set up and safe and secure
Yeah.
in order for
That's what I'm
you
working
to
on.
let go of these constructual things, for it to feel safe enough to do that, especially when you have kids, because kids are like very tethering,
Yeah.
right?
But
Which
I
we love
also
that.
feel like they're gonna follow me. I
Oh
at
yeah,
least
for
my
sure.
youngest, I
Yeah.
think they're gonna follow me in some way in what I do. And I know my oldest, I've lived past lifetimes with him. I don't know about my youngest. He feels new to me, but I'm not 100% sure. But I know my oldest, he's been my father in my past lifetimes. And he came to this lifetime to torture me.
Well, just continue to work on your human,
Yeah.
okay, and making sure that she's okay with, and set up, situationally, and continue to work on your multidimensional self with connecting in with these versions of you, watching the adventurer things, because that's going to start flooding very quickly. Okay, that stuff is very quickly. This
Okay.
magician lady over here, that stuff is long-term learning. That's
It's funny because
long-term learning for what she
I
has.
feel
Okay.
her. Like when you talk about her, I can almost see her. And like when you described her, I can feel that because it almost feels entirely like myself
Hmm.
in a lot of
Do you know who
ways.
Maleficent is?
Yeah,
Okay.
I love the
Mm,
Angelina Jolie Maleficent.
yes.
I felt like that was me when I watched it. I
Oh,
cried.
okay. let's take her as an archetype. Okay, Maleficent. This magician lady, Maleficent, is like a super wildly watered down version of her.
Okay.
That's as far as like
It
ancient
felt so familiar to
magic.
me. Yeah.
That's the, and I don't want to say that to like upset Maleficent's archetype, okay?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
we're
yeah.
not saying like waters down, but she's like that
I
kind of
get
like
it.
primordial energy back here. So,
It
so
felt
yeah,
so familiar to me watching that part
yeah,
when she was younger and she had access to that magic and she
yeah,
was flying. And when I was younger and I would watch movies like that, I always felt very connected to them, like the magic, and I would get lost in it. And when the movie was over, I would cry because I felt like I just stepped out of the movie world where I used to live and now
yeah,
into this world, and I would be really upset.
yeah. I was like that when I watched Avatar, like the one with the blue persons, and they were
Mhm.
like in their
I did too.
world. Yeah,
I did too
I was
for a little while.
crying because I was like,
Yeah.
my home, and you know,
Yeah.
it's not that home, but it's something that's similar. Yeah,
Yes, because we resonate
yeah,
with it. That makes so much more
yeah,
sense now.
yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions before we finish up?
No, just other than those things like meditation, and I've been working on, I used to meditate twice a day and then everything like messed it up. So I'm getting back to that again. Like finding space for myself to do those things. Is there anything else that you recommend that I work on or work towards?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. One, you don't have to do still meditation. Like you don't have to be sitting there in the silence to connect with them. Like because you're clear cognizant, so you have open channels. You can just be talking to them throughout the day and ask
Yeah.
them to send you insights and downloads and guidance and things like that. Um, really, um, the adventurer stuff, like whenever you have time, because that's something you can do with the kids too. You know, like watching movies, TV shows, reading books, things like that, fantasy books. Um, maybe doing a little bit of research about Methuselah. Not getting too caught up in that though, because it's a lot of religious context, and that's not what this is. It's more like the archetype of him.
Yeah.
Speaking to or watching that movie, Fantastic Fungi, going into those mushroom fields and talking with the guardian, uh, looking at pictures of the Methuselah tree, connecting with the tree. These are not really 3D things that you need to be working on. This is kind of like all
Okay.
more etheric work. There's not, that's what I was trying to tell you before. There's not really any type of 3D stuff that you're
It'll
or
just,
even
yeah.
like trauma and PTSD stuff. This is all like higher ethereal work,
Yeah.
and it's all going to start. It's not even something
It'll
that you
just
have to
start.
consciously do. Yeah,
Okay, I get it.
it's all there's
That's the
something that you
confirmation
have
that I
to do.
needed.
Except those other things I talked about, like connecting with
Yeah.
them, and then Methuselah, and then the
Okay.
fantastic fungi, and like all of those things. I
Yeah.
do that, and that will get you kickstarted and jumped to where all this stuff is going to start coming in.
Okay. That was the
Yeah,
kind of the confirmation that I needed because that's kind of what I got from
yeah,
that.
that's it.
That's how things have been happening. I just if I want to read that, if I want to take that course, then I do
Yeah,
it.
just keep doing
And
that same thing, like with
yeah.
it, but within the context of these things,
Yeah.
and that will lead you to where you're supposed to be going.
Yeah, because I started doing stuff like Reiki certifications, but it doesn't feel right because I know that it's more expansive than that. Whatever I have access to or whatever I will have access to, you don't necessarily have to like take a course to do it.
Well, Reiki sometimes too, like I love Reiki. I'm a Reiki master too, but
Yeah.
Reiki is
Like
very
limiting.
it's very human. It's
Yeah.
very like helping you with your human incarnation, and it is like you obviously you can do galactic Reiki or etheric Reiki and all these different things, but it's a lot denser, and the work that you're trying to get to is
Yeah.
more
That's what I
ethereal,
feel.
and so that's
Yeah.
probably why it's not resonating with you anymore like it probably did in the past. Like I
It did a little bit. Yeah.
yeah.
Now I'm like, it's something, it's not, I don't know.
You just the avenues of healing are not in resonance with Reiki. So like it's like, okay, well, if I'm going this way, then I probably don't need this over here right now.
Yeah.
It'll come back around if you need it though.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. That makes sense.
Okay. I am going to send you your oracle cards and your crystal grid, and then I'll send you the replay as well. And then if you have any other additional questions, you can let me know.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
It was lovely meeting you. You got it. Okay. Your people are coming in.
you.
The gifts are good. Like everything is tracking how it's supposed to. I know it's been rough.
Okay.
It's not gonna be
Thank
like that forever. And it's not now, but I mean, it's really
Yeah.
going to like really vastly shift.
Okay. I'm waiting.
I know. In the time blocks. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll get over it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay. I'll talk to you next time. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.